Good morning, everybody, and happy Aloha Friday. Welcome to PSG of Mercer County. PSG, or Professional Service Group of Mercer County, is a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. And while we normally meet each Friday morning at the Princeton Public Library, right now, because of restrictions, public restrictions, we are meeting virtually to keep ourselves busy and active and sharing resources. I also looked at the national calendar yesterday, and I found today is National Clean Out Your Medicine Cabinet Day. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. Nothing to do with drug habits or anything like that, nothing so nefarious or certainly very serious for some people, but really want to think about, it's certainly a good idea if you have some old medication, whether it's prescription or over the counter, it's probably a good idea to toss it out. But now, certainly, since we're mostly sheltering in place and at home, we have a little bit of extra time on our hands, and that may be one of the things that you'll want to plan for yourself and in order to keep yourself busy as well. So you may have house cleaning and other chores, go through your closets and medicine cabinet as well. So I thought that was kind of a cute one. For those of you that are joining us for the very first time, or even if you've been here before, I want to let you know we do have a lot of resources available to share with you and anyone who's in a career transition. Among those are our LinkedIn group. We have a LinkedIn group. It is called PSG of Mercer County. And actually, that's the only thing you ever have to write down, PSG of Mercer County. It is a little bit of a private group. You can search for it on LinkedIn. It's very easy to find. Just put in the PSG of Mercer County. And the group page will pop up. And if you are not yet a member of the group, what will happen? You'll see a join button or join group button, something like that. And click that, and we will immediately accept you into pending status. And that's what I mean by closed group. We don't let just anybody in, we let you in. Anybody that's been in our either in-person group or now our virtual group. And the reason why we're a little selective that way is we're really trying to keep out people that are just joining the group just for their own benefit and collecting names and creating lists. We really want it to be people who are serious about job search or who have been in a job search before they're not active. We have over 1,500 members right now in our LinkedIn group, the LinkedIn PSG of Mercer County group. They are all people that have been through our program over the years. So what it means is if you want to connect with them, if you want to contact them through the group, a good chance that they'll contact you back because these are people that really understand the value of being in touch and connecting with people in a job search. Once you're in the group, share an article, share a job lead. You've probably gotten one of those emails of a wonderful job that just has nothing to do with you at all, but may be relevant to somebody else. And of course, what you can do is copy and paste that into LinkedIn and share it with all of us as well. So you do get easy access to all 1,500 group members, even those that are not yet your first degree members. And we also have our website, and you hopefully wrote it down already, PSG of Mercer County. It's actually psgofmercercounty.org. It's not just a landing page, it is a very robust website we've developed over the last 6 or 7 years of over 120 pages of content. We have a job boards page, and it's a menu item right along the top of the page of the menu, job boards. And when you click on that, there are several pages deep, but what we cover are Mercer County and the 6 border counties. So even if you're someone that lives overseas, and for us overseas is Bucks County is a border county, and we of course do have a page there. And actually we have up to 12 pages per county, because once you click on the county, we'll open up another page that has up to 12 different service areas. Examples might be education, not-for-profit, financial services, and so forth. And when you click on that, our page opens up to links to companies that are in that county and that also are in that section. And so go take a look. You may go right to their career page, find the jobs that they are posting that are current and that are active still. And I realize some companies do post jobs that are not quite active or not quite recruiting for, or so forth. Sometimes that they do that, but at least what happens by going right to the company career page, it'd be a lot more current than if they just sent us job leads and we tried to post them, because they would just age out and we wouldn't know about it. So go take a look. You can also use our job boards pages to create a company list. You may not know all the companies that are available in the greater Mercer County and surrounding area, and this is a way to find over 2,600 links to these companies across the 7 counties, Mercer and the 6 border counties. So go take a look there as well. We do also have in our professional services, professional development section, which is also a menu item, professional development. You open up that page, and then there is a link for e-learning. And we've developed that page quite extensively. There are now 35 e-learning websites that are available to you. So certainly in this time when we're sheltering in place and maybe home a little bit more than we might normally be, one thing you can do to spend some time, update your skills, and answer some good questions in your interview would be e-learning. Not all those sites are free. Some of them are completely free. A couple are subscription only, and some of them are hybrid, where they have some free classes and some other non-free classes. So take a look. It's just at least one nice place to find a whole lot of e-learning resources. So that's about PSG of Mercer County. And kudos really to, we have an executive committee. There are 9 of us on the executive committee. We all do a little bit to keep ourselves busy and keep the group active and running. And the website is something that we do revisit periodically to update and keep fresh. So we kudos to everyone who helps us out. Just want to let you know a couple of ground rules as we get ourselves started. So please keep your audio on mute. There's a button kind of at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a little microphone. If your microphone is green, it is on. We ask that you keep it off, keep it red. I do have a means to track it and see who's on and off. So if I hear background noises, I may just click somebody off. If you do have a question, there's a chat option in the upper right corner of your GoToMeeting screen. There's a little chat button or icon. Kind of looks like one of those comic book circles, you know, when the way little comic book characters would be talking, and you click on that and the chat window will open. So I just ask you, please use that for chatting questions to us. What I'll be doing is I'll be monitoring the questions, and Harris will have time during the presentation or after the presentation, as he's planned it anyway, and we will get to your questions that way. You know, we can get a very big crowd here, and audio will just be a little cumbersome. And also, if you don't mind, please leave chat at least 4 questions. A lot of us sometimes will use it for just wishing everyone a good day and say hello. And while that's very pleasant, it just makes it a little harder for me to efficiently go through all the Q&A. Of course, in chat, you can pick a specific person to contact. They'll have a little private message, and that's fine if you want to do that for other messages. But for the Q&A, please use the chat option. Your choice, keep video on and off. Some people find it a little distracting, some people don't. That's up to you if you wish to do that or not. There is also a button at the top of your screen. It might right now say view everyone. It looks like a little up arrow and down arrow right in the top center. You can change what you see. So if you don't want to view everyone, you can turn off. You can say hide everyone. You can only view who's talking. If you click that, you would see me. In a moment, I will share the screen with Harris, or Harris will share his screen. You'll mostly see Harris's screen, and then either small icons of Harris or small icons of everyone. So it's up to you to pick the view option that's best for you. Okay. So Harris, I'm now just granting you the ability to make yourself the presenter. And so please, oh, I'm sorry, let me also make sure I introduce Harris. And terribly sorry about that. So good, Harris decided to share a screen. Let me just say that I'm very pleased that our presenter this morning, Harris Grubin, is able to join us. Harris is a very well-respected franchise coach and highly visible leader in the greater Philadelphia business community. With over 25 years of work experience, which has included a family business, Harris has a broad and accomplished background that spans several industries. Harris is also renowned for his vast network and unique ability to build meaningful and long-lasting partnerships. When Harris isn't working with clients in transition, he volunteers his time as a live auctioneer and helping nonprofits in the Delaware Valley achieve and exceed their fundraising goals. And so PSG of Mercer County is just very happy to welcome and present to you Harris Grubin.
All right. Thank you, David.
You're welcome. It's all yours.
All right. Awesome. So thank you, and thanks to the PSG group for having me, and thank you to all the attendees that joined. I hope everyone and their significant others and loved ones are healthy during what my kids are calling the coronacation. And now that we're all here on lockdown, I have 3 kids and my wonderful wife and a dog. So if you hear anything unexpected, it's all because we're happily at home. Again, my name's Harris Grubin. I am a franchise coach, as David shared, and work with a boutique firm called the Entrepreneur Option. Today's presentation, why to consider the path to business ownership and franchise exploration and finding the right fit, is really designed for professionals, hopefully like yourselves, who are exploring the next chapter in their career, and why to consider franchising as a viable option. And I've designed this presentation to kind of hum along, and hopefully we'll be at about 30 to 40 minutes, trying keeping it nice and concise for attention spans, myself included. Before we dive in, just a little bit about me. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, including my parents and the business that they started. My experience in a family business has really given me a very unique perspective on starting one's own business versus owning a franchise. I've personally experienced being in transition twice in my life. And as David shared, have 25 plus years of experience in networking, as well as relationship building. And I've been a franchise coach for over 7 years now. Now, some of you may be wondering, if this presentation is worth your time or even right for you. And I would say to that, most of my clients are roughly 50 to 60 years old. They come from all walks of life. However, many have held upper management roles, executive roles, as well as C-level roles. And about 10% of my clients know they would like to exit corporate America. It's not the right fit for them anymore, and they're just trying to figure out what is the right fit. I would say the other 90% fall into about 2 buckets. Some say, you know what, Harris, I really would like to have my own business, but I am going to simultaneously explore job opportunities. And then the other half say, you know what, I'd really like to go back to corporate America, but I'm open to exploring. And so they are also seeing what's out there. Now, when you consider franchising, it's all about one thing. And I think that's the biggest thing I'd like to stress to everybody who's joined us this morning, is it's all about exploration. Franchise exploration is just a big exercise in learning about a business and really trying to determine if it's the right fit for you and your family. Which brings us to what we're going to cover today. So what we'll cover: why work with a coach, right? We'll talk about the benefits of having a coach. Why even choose entrepreneurship, right? So of all the things you could do, why even consider owning your own business? Buying a franchise, the ins and outs and what to consider, and the numbers. So, hey, you might be asking yourself, why do I even need a coach? And I always share, think of it this way. What do all high performing executives and really the world's best sports players have in common? They all have coaches. And the basic reason is they want to up their game. So one of the benefits, and many of you may have worked with coaches in the past, is, a coach can see things that you can't, right? They'll bring a different perspective to the table. A coach will say things that you won't feel comfortable with, like, hey, I don't feel comfortable enough saying this. It might upset that person. And a coach will help you have an open and honest dialogue. A coach will help you come to your own conclusions. And so guide you through that process and help you get the information you need for you to make a well-informed decision. And a great coach is really going to know things you don't. A coach can help you make sure you're not making the same mistake other people have already paid the price for. And that's one thing that I see over and over again with clients who come to me that struck it out on their own. If they had only used a coach, whether it was me or anybody else for that matter, to just help them to be a sounding board and a guide and to make them look at things objectively, they would have been in better shoes. Let me move on to the next slide here. Actually, I'll come back to that. The other thing about just franchise coaching in general is it's very overwhelming. And even those with the best business acumen find it to be a very daunting task. So there's about 3,800 concepts out there. There's some very good franchisors, but more terrible than good, if you will. If you Google the word franchise, you get over 250 million results. And what you find is everyone's an award winner, right? Everyone's a #1 this and a top 5 that. And so even with the best business acumen, it's really impossible to distill it all down. So a good coach, whoever you work with, will help you find quality concepts that are worthy of exploration and that are in alignment with your goals and your needs. At least that's what you're looking for when working with a coach, who can understand what I'm trying to accomplish, who I am personally and professionally, and get me to concepts that are worthy, that are in alignment of exploration. Along those lines, you might want to write the following down. There's a few things you should look for when looking at concepts, okay? The criteria, if you will. So longevity. So franchisors that typically have longevity, I would say franchisors that have 30 or more locations is a good starting point. Unless you're the type of person who really considers yourself a visionary or early adopter. And most people don't, so they want longevity, okay? I also advise clients to steer away from fads. So no yogurt places or ice cream shops or cupcakeries. And I could take a deeper dive on why I steer clients away from those through the Q&A. Good ROI. So what does that mean? Many of you have probably made 6-figure salaries in the past, and you know that you want to get back to that point, level at some point. So trying to find concepts that have good ROI, well-known, companies that are well-known in their industry. So we're not talking about McDonald's and Subways, but others that have great brand name recognition in their area of expertise. Some you may not have heard of, but again, are very well-known. And then obviously companies that are reputable to work with, because again, there's a lot of terrible companies out there. And sometimes when a concept looks good at first glance, it's only when you start to peel back the layers of the onion that you find a very different story. And I would say to everybody, keep in mind, if you choose to explore, again, looking for a coach to be a guide and a sounding board, and most importantly, challenge assumptions, right? You want that person to make you look at things from a different perspective. You know, the coach should really get to know you, your personal self, your professional self. And other things that you should keep in mind when working with somebody is that person should emphasize research, and that the franchisor and the other franchisees, you should use them as your benchmark, okay? They're going to give you firsthand information. And it doesn't so much matter what the franchisor says, because, you know, that's a salesperson on the other end of the phone trying to sell, but the franchisees are extremely important. They've all been in your shoes, whether that's somebody who's in the concept only a year or somebody that's in the concept for 10 years. They're going to give you the real deal. They're going to give you the feedback, and people love to complain. So if the franchisor isn't supporting them in the right way or doing something that they think the franchisor should be doing, you're definitely going to hear about it. And the other thing you want to keep in mind too is the person you're working with should encourage you to make decisions based on data, getting data and the right data. That's really, really important. And we'll discuss later in the presentation the biggest mistakes people make when they explore. Now, you might want to take a picture of this. 10 questions to ask yourself. We're not going to go through all the questions, but number one, does your family support you? If the answer to this question is no, there's no need to go any further in your exploration process. You must have your spouse or partner's support, because really starting a franchise is a major life decision. I will share this though. However, once in a while, a client will share with their spouse or partner that they are exploring franchising, and they'll have a negative response, which is really based on that person's own perception or assumptions. It's just human nature. And they'll say things like, you know, you're going to have to work 80 hours a week, or we don't have $1 million to invest. You don't know anything about that. How do you think we could even be in a business like that? And what I always share and often counsel clients around is encourage your significant others to be included in the process. And that's key, because it gives them an understanding of what franchise exploration looks like. It answers any of their concerns. It gets them feeling comfortable that you aren't simply learning about a franchise, or that you are simply learning about a franchise and you're not making any decisions yet. A lot of times, someone's partner really feels that investments are going to be made and they're not going to be included, and they're left in the dark. So having a collaborative approach is in the beginning is extremely helpful. Question number two, what do you want out of business ownership? So if you're even considering doing something new, you know, is it financial? Do you want a flexible lifestyle? Is it job satisfaction? Would you like to have multiple income streams? I've had clients say they don't really need the money, but want to stay relevant. I've had others who have said, I want to prove that I can accomplish business ownership. So everyone has a different need. It could be multiple. The question you want to ask yourself is, what's yours? Now, when it comes to finding the right fit, what are your business goals, right? Look at your transferable business and professional skills. Do you excel at operations? Are you a good salesperson? Perhaps you're an outgoing introvert. You know, is managing others something you're good at and like to do? You know, do you want something that's a home-based business, something that's in a flex space, or perhaps a retail location? And I would say this, remember the following: never settle for something that does not fit your business model. That's really important. Take your time. You can walk through an exploration process as quickly and methodically as you'd like, or as slowly and methodically as you like. But remember, you want to make sure it hits your personal business model, and that's something that your coach should be able to work with you through. Now, what holds people back from going into business? Risk. That is the number one thing. And we could talk about how to overcome that feeling of risk and what really gives clients a pause. And I'm happy to answer some of those questions at the end of the presentation, and throughout the presentation, some of them will pop up. So we're going to look at this graph. It's very oversimplified, but I would say the trends out there, you know, the data out there supports this oversimplified graph. So what you'll see is the yellow line represents your career. And as you progress through your career, you'll see the risk for job stability increases substantially, which many of you may have experienced already or know somebody where it fits this, this example. And what you see is the green, okay, is business ownership. And that piece shows that the risk early on over time is high, but it continues to decrease. Now, we would never say that the risk of business ownership would ever be zero, and never suggest that it would, but you will find it does decrease over time. And what happens is you begin to grow your client base. Those clients become repeat customers, and you develop a good reputation. People in the community get to know you and trust you, and your operations expand. So I just want to dig a little bit deeper on this concept. So, let's say you're 50 right now, and the average time to land a job is 22 weeks, so 5.5 months. And the average length of a job is 4.2 years. Okay, so you work for your employer now for the next 4.5, 5 years, and you're laid off, or the business was acquired, or the business was sold, or a new CEO comes in, or the company goes bankrupt, and now you're 55, and you're 5 years older, and you just made your job search infinitely more challenging and stressful. So this puts everyone further away from their goals. So, what I would say is ask yourself, if you're let go in 5 years from now, will I be where I want to be financially, especially for retirement? Will I be any closer to financial independence? Will I have the flexible lifestyle I want at this point in my career? Many say a corporate job is more secure, but I always question that. Is taking a job at 50 really prudent after working for 30 years and having not achieved your financial goals, for which many are savings for retirement or financial independence? So is taking a job for the next 5 years going to get you closer to your goals? It's just something to think about. It doesn't mean that all of that may make sense, and everybody can comprehend that example, that you'll say, okay, I got to go into franchising. Many won't. Many people will actually go back into corporate America, but it's just something to think about. And I want this presentation to give you something to think about. Now, this is a really cool book. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. If not, write it down, especially if you like data. The premise of the book started out with the following question. There's a lot of millionaires out there. Where did they get their money? It's a very interesting read. It's written by 2 authors, both PhDs, and they learned through extensive research that 70% of millionaires own their own business, and these men and women are really just your next door neighbor. I mean, we tend to think of millionaires just as basketball players or rock stars or CEOs from Fortune 500 companies, but in reality, they're just average people like you and me who, live average lives but own their own business. So let's talk about franchising and going into business. And there's 3 ways you can go into business. One is you could start your own business, which my family did. You could buy an existing business, which some people do, or you could invest in a franchise. Now, I do have a slide about buying a business. We're not going to take a deep dive. Actually, we're not going to even go there for the sake of the presentation. But if anybody's interested, I could give some pros and cons to buying a business, either after the presentation or offline. So from my experience and everything that I've learned, I always share with people the most effective way to mitigate your risk in business ownership is through franchising. And I think the next set of slides will share why. Now, before I give that list, a lot of people say, well, what is a franchise? So a franchise, simply put, is a license to use someone else's business name and their methods. And what you'll hear in the franchise space, okay, the foundation for franchising is you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So here are the 5 advantages. You can take a snapshot of this. I'm going to go through all of them and highlight each one. So let's talk about a proven system. So I would say a proven system, this is more important than the product. Again, it's more important than a product. And I know some of you are probably scratching your head right now as I say that, but we all know McDonald's. So think about it for a second. You can make a better burger than McDonald's. We all can, right? You buy the best meat, you season it perfectly, and grill it exactly the way you want it so it's nice and juicy and flavorful. But we can't claim that 1 billion have been served, right? McDonald's isn't successful. McDonald's is successful not because Ray Kroc made the best burger, but because he put the best systems in place that made everything extremely efficient and scalable. And he talks a lot about that in his autobiography, Grinding It Out. Great book to read. Now, the second advantage is supporting and training. At the end of the day, the franchisor, they're in business to make money. And the franchisor makes more money when you make more. So top performing franchisors are invested in your success. You'll find that they have teams of employees to support you from lease negotiation and build out things you may have zero experience in, to sales and marketing and ongoing back-end support. Keep in mind, not having any experience in these areas is okay, because that's why folks invest in a franchise, because they're giving you a proven system. They're giving you the training and the support. They're giving you that recipe for success. It's like you're getting a business in a box. In fact, 75%, so 3 out of 4 people have zero industry experience in the franchise they invest in. They're successful because they're parlaying their skill set, their years of experience, and their talents into the business, and of course, following that recipe for success. The other areas that I want to highlight where you'll find a lot of franchise support that owners need in order to be successful are the following: marketing, you might want to write these down; management, sales, finance, recruiting, training, statistical tracking, pricing it correctly, and HR. Now, most owners are not running on all of these cylinders. And if they are, they aren't running on all of them effectively or efficiently. And this is what a good franchisor brings to the table. And those that I just listed out for you really made me realize where my own personal family business wasn't running up to par, and the different areas that we constantly had trouble in, and we didn't have the support that we needed because we were an independent organization. And who did we have to turn to but only ourselves? The other thing you'll find is fellow franchisees can be a very good support system. You'll find many have listservs where you can reach out and share a problem, or even an opportunity to give feedback. And you'll find that some are very collaborative. Now, the FDD. There's a lot of free information when you explore. That's the beauty of exploration, is that the information doesn't cost you anything. So the franchise disclosure document, also known as the FDD, is a document regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. It's required that the franchisor update it once a year, that they need to publish it and make it available for anyone to review. And you must receive it before you invest and give a check to the franchisor. In fact, what you're looking at now is a table of contents, and they all look the same. It's all regulated by the FTC, so not to confuse the general public. Now, we're not going to go through all of the items, and some are obvious, but a couple I just want to highlight, excuse me, which are maybe not so obvious, like litigation. So you may see a minor lawsuit in the FDD, like a slip and fall. But if you were to see, for example, dozens of lawsuits between the franchisor and the franchisee, well, that's it. I mean, it's a red flag. You're done with your research. Kind of run, don't walk, because you don't want to be put in a position where you're a franchisee and then suing the franchisor. Now, you'll see item number 7, the initial investment. That's the cost to get into the business. So it's going to give you detailed estimates. Item number 12, your territory. You want to know what you're investing in. What's your reach? How far can you go? Is it exclusive? Is it not exclusive? How big is it? That's all going to be laid out in the FDD. Item 20, that's highlighted because that's probably the most important item. It's the list of all of the franchisees for you to reach out and talk to. So it all comes down to validation. Validation means speaking to the franchisees that came before you, and you'll have an opportunity to call 5 franchisees, 10 franchisees. You could call the entire list to get the information you need to make a well-informed decision so you're comfortable in your decision-making process. And then item 21, financial statements required so you know what shape the franchisor's in. You want to know that they're solvent. Next, research and validation. Again, all free. So when you begin exploration, the franchisor will take you through their exploration process. They're going to explain the business. Typically, they'll have an introductory call with you. They may even have you join a webinar. They'll provide you with the FDD. They'll review it with you. Going back to item 20 in the FDD with that list of franchisees, you'll be able to speak to folks, again, who have been in the system for a year and just are getting their feet wet, to somebody who's been in the system for 10 years. And again, everybody's been in your shoes, so they're very open to helping you through your exploration process. Now, after you've done your due diligence and you feel like the franchise meets your needs, you'll go to meet the executive leadership at the home office. You'll meet some of the people you'll work with on a monthly basis. And this trip to the home office is called Discovery Day. And finally, you can do outside research. And outside research is great to do. You just want to do it at the right time during the exploration process, and that's not at the beginning. So I always encourage clients to do any outside research they want to do. At the end of the day, it's all at your fingertips, but you just want to do it at the right time. So use the franchisor and the franchisees as your benchmark, okay? And then any outside research you do will be in context with the feedback that you get after speaking with 10 or let's say 12 or 15 franchisees. Now, the biggest mistake, which I shared early on in the presentation, the biggest mistake clients make when they begin to explore franchising is using their assumptions and perceptions, basically making the answers up in your mind to inform your decision-making process. And again, outside research leads to this in the beginning. I encourage it. It's important to do. It's all there at your fingertips. You just want to do it at the right time. What happens is people use their assumptions or perceptions in the beginning, and it stops them from moving forward. It stops them from even learning about the business. Speaking with the franchisor, and more importantly, the franchisees, will be your most helpful path forward. So I can't stress that enough, and I know sometimes I sound like a broken record. Other challenges you'll experience is your own head trash, myself included. If you hear the following words coming out of your mouth, it seems like, I think, my gut, or I feel. Stop and say, did I verify? Did I validate? People will say there's too much competition in the area I live in. There's no way this business could support that. I don't have any experience in this. How could I be successful? Okay. Those are all valid concerns. There's a way to get your answer, and you want to make sure that your coach can help you get that answer. Okay. And finally, it's easy to make a decision based upon fear. It's human nature. I always share with clients, go back to your research from the franchisor and the franchisees and see what that research is telling you. Now, one of the most critical things to remember when looking at a franchise, which people ironically often overlook, is to understand the role of the owner, okay? They don't dig down enough to understand exactly what the day in and day out of an owner is going to be. Ask yourself, do you envision yourself doing the work and liking the work? So really understand from the owner what happens in the morning, what's happening in the afternoon, what's happening in the evening, what's the month look like, what's the year look like, how am I interacting with clients, how am I interacting with my employees? Is this something that's going to really get me going every day? That's really, really important. Additional input to help you in your decision-making process is really to build your own advisory board. So I always encourage clients to connect with a franchise attorney. They'll review your franchise agreement. They'll highlight certain areas that you should be aware of, and make sure it's an attorney that specifically focuses on franchise law. I always use the following example. You'd never go to your primary care physician for heart surgery. The same holds true when looking for an attorney for franchising. Look for a franchise attorney. And I always say, find an accountant, one who practices a healthy mix of both business and personal tax, 50-50, 60-40, something close to that. Now, there's a lot of advantages of having a franchise, but it's not all peaches and cream. So I just want to highlight a few of the disadvantages. It's important to think about these things. So first, the franchise fee. That's going to impact your startup costs, right? A franchise fee can range from as little as $35,000 to as much as $50,000. Now, it's a one-time fee, but it's still part of your investment. Every franchisor is going to have royalties. It's an ongoing fee. Typically, they'll range from 5% to 10%. You're making a trade-off here. You're exchanging some profits in the long term for risk reduction in the short term. Franchisors have restrictions. So, for example, I mean, it sounds silly, but if everyone in my town likes mashed potatoes and I own a McDonald's, I cannot swap out French fries for mashed potatoes. You have to follow a system. And the franchisor, they're going to give you that system that you need to follow in order to be successful. And most of the time, what you'll hear when you speak to a good franchisor, a good concept with lots of franchisees and longevity and a good reputation, when somebody isn't performing well, you'll hear, I really wasn't following the system. When you hear somebody say, oh my God, this was the worst decision I ever made, I lost all my money, the franchisor was terrible, run, don't walk, that is a concept that is not a good concept to explore. That is a concept that doesn't hit the 4 pieces of criteria that you should look for, okay? A good franchisor who has poor performing franchisees, typically what you should hear is I wasn't following the system. All right. Some things you want to be on the lookout for. There's too much competition. I see those companies everywhere, Harris, or you can't make any money in that. The margins are too small. Or you went to college and you're not going to be able to manage, blue collar employees like that. This is something you'll experience as you start to explore. It's inevitable. You're going to speak to family members and friends. You're going to run into people who are very well-meaning people, okay, who have your best interest at heart, and they're going to tell you all about the business and whose, brother, sister's cousin made either a bundle in franchising or lost everything, which might be true, but it's just one data point. There are hundreds of other points of data that you'll uncover, that you need to uncover to get an accurate picture. So if I told you there was a company where there was a ton of competition, margins were tight, employees are perhaps lower skilled or less educated, would you invest in a company like that? You'd say no. Then there's Wawa. Now, Wawa is not a franchise, but I use them as an example to make the point. Competition is fierce, and every other corner there's a gas station with a convenience store, but we know that Wawa is a great and thriving company. So the point is you want to peel back those layers of the onion to get the data that you need, again, to make a well-informed decision, even though those well-intentioned people are telling you other points of data. The franchisor and the franchisees are your benchmark to compare what you're hearing outside, right? Moving along, again, really getting the information from people who really know, people who have really done it. You want to get to a point in your exploration where you have enough information to make a well-informed decision, and don't make your decision based upon one story you hear or one point of data. The other thing I want to say is expect to be nervous. At some point, you're going to be nervous, but always go back to your research. What is it telling you? Your skill set, your experience, your accomplishments are the things that are going to help you succeed in the new business. And I can tell you this from the past 7 years of working with clients, people invest in a franchise for two reasons. Number one, they believe in themselves and they want a better life for themselves. I had a client who once looked at the franchise exploration process this way. He always said to himself the following: what I'm trying to do is to evaluate if I was hired to do this particular job, would I be comfortable taking on the job knowing I could succeed? And he looked at it from that perspective because he felt it helped him take the anxiety out of the process. All right. Now, when you think about franchising, what comes to mind? The most frequent answer people share is fast food restaurants, Burger King, Wendy's, Subway. All right. These are the top 10 concepts in the world. But like I shared with you before, there are so many more. In fact, there's over 3,500, closer to 38. Many are not in the food and restaurant industry, and franchising has grown exponentially since the 50s. Today, there's more than 750,000 locations out there, or what they call units. It does not take $1 million to invest in a franchise. And again, if you type in franchise in Google, you'll get over 250 million results. So just substantial growth there. Just a quick fun fact, most people think the first food franchise was McDonald's. It was actually White Castle in 21, and A&W came in 26. McDonald's started franchising in 55, when actually Ray Kroc was 52 years old. So pretty cool. As I shared before, with these 3,500 plus concepts, there's 6 basic categories, okay? You have food, automotive, and retail at the top, all right? And then you have B2B, business to consumer, B2C, which is residential or personal services or education. We focus on the 3 at the bottom because typically the 3 on the top are more capital intensive businesses. B2B, B2C, and education are typically less capital intensive. They're not brick and mortar, and many of them you can do from your home, okay? Here is a franchise category list. Feel free to take a snapshot. Like David said, the presentation will be on the website for you to look. But I just wanted to share this. There are so many different categories out there. And I think my next slide will give you an idea of the success by numbers. So when it comes to retail and service locations, you'll see that franchises make up 15% of the retail locations, okay? So maybe not a big number, but they account for 40% of all the sales. So just in other words, they have more revenue per unit than independents. Now, you're probably asking yourself, all right, Harris, what's the investment here, right? If I'm going to explore, you said I don't have to invest $1 million. What's typical? So most concepts have a range between $50,000 and $350,000. There's plenty that have higher investment ranges, okay? But what we typically see is 50 to 350. And remember, the rule of investment, there is no relationship between the amount you invest and the amount you can earn. I'll give you a quick example. There's a concept out there. It's a home-based concept. It's in the education space. The investment is about $50,000, and the highest performing franchisee in that concept does $1 million in revenue. Now, they've been in the business for 15 years, but they do $1 million in revenue. Pretty good for a $50,000 investment. Now, a few things to note about your investment is the cost of needed assets is going to drive that investment. So, for example, retail, obviously a storefront, bricks and mortar, is going to drive up that investment cost. There'll also be ramp up time. Remember, when you invest in your own business, even if you did this on your own, even if you decided you wanted to consult or start your own business, it's short-term pain for long-term gain. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And you shouldn't expect to be profitable in your first month. However, some businesses will definitely have cash flow in month one. The total investment includes your upfront costs, okay, your upfront costs plus your working capital, okay, which you can see here on a simplified example. So the franchisor is going to say, here are all of your costs, including the franchise fee. Don't forget, you need working capital for the first 3 months. Okay, they'll typically let you know what you'll need that for, what you can expect, or maybe the first 6 months. Some concepts have a very low investment, but you need to be able to support yourself for an entire year. So that would be your working capital. And there's your total investment. So $70,000 for the upfront costs, working capital is $30,000, total investment is $100,000. Financing. How much do you need, right? Because you might be saying, well, $350,000, I don't have that. So that's okay, because typically what you do need is 20% down. So it's like buying a house, okay? 20% down, and you finance the rest. The minimum required liquid capital is between $25,000 and $50,000. That's the minimum required that you'll see. Financing. Lots of different ways to finance your business. I have clients who use home equity lines of credit. Some people do use their 401k or IRA without penalty. You can actually roll over some of your money into that. Everybody has a different philosophy there. Some people say, yes, I would do that, no problem. Others say, I would never do that. I would never touch it. That's my nest egg. But you can roll it over. There's no penalty, and it's called a rollover for business startups. There's SBA loans, there's leasing. You can go to your local bank or credit union. Some people even self-finance with conventional savings. Remember this, and I'll conclude here. Franchise exploration is a big exercise in learning about a business and seeing if it's the right fit for you. And it should be an enjoyable process. You should have fun with it. You should be learning something new. From my own experience over the last 7 years, okay, there's 3 things that have to happen in order for you to go into business. It works like a perfect triangle, okay? It has to be the right concept for you and your family. It has to be the right time in your life. And it has to be the right investment amount. And if you remove just one of those corners, the triangle collapses, and so does going into a franchise concept. And I'll then open this up to David for any questions. Happy to answer it. There's my contact information. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow, terrific, Harris. This was very informative. We certainly know that franchising or business ownership or independent consulting is not right for everybody, but every once in a while people ask me about it, and because of my ability to be involved with job seekers, I was so happy that Harris was able to participate with us and describe it. So we do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is from Bill. Which franchising rankings, for instance, he gave maybe Entrepreneur magazine as example, which franchise rankings are worth paying attention to?
That's a great question and a hard question to answer. I think if you look at the concepts first without understanding what you want to accomplish, you're going in a backwards order. It's kind of putting the cart before the horse. So what I would say to folks is, if they're looking at Entrepreneur magazine or typing into Google, the top 100 franchises, understand what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, understand what you like, what you don't like. Write out your vision for what you want your perfect work-life balance to look like. What skill sets you're going to parlay into the business? What are your strengths? What's your investment level? Okay, because you could look at those concepts in Entrepreneur magazine, but it could be $1 million concept or a $750,000 concept, and your budget, your budget's not going to allow for it, or you might not feel comfortable. You might have the budget. I have plenty of clients that have millions of dollars saved, but they're risk averse, so they're not going to spend $1 million. Okay, when you and work with somebody to help you do that, because they're going to distill all of that down. What I see with Franchise Magazine is a lot of chatter, and then it becomes very confusing to the consumer and very overwhelming. So really try and work with someone to align yourself with concepts that are really in alignment with what you're trying to accomplish. That's probably the best way I can answer that question for Bill.
Terrific.
And then, by the way, Bill, if just David, let me say this, Bill,
Yep.
if you do start to look at concepts, validation. Once you start to explore with the franchisor, you want to speak to franchisees. They're going to give you a list of probably their best performers, which is good because you can understand what it's going to take to be a best performer. And I'm sure you value yourself as a best performer, but then you get to call anybody on the list and see why people are not performing well.
Certainly we talk about doing a self-assessment in the context of job search, and there's a lot that goes into it. Do I still like the career that I'm in? Do I understand the industry? Lots of questions to ask, and certainly there are a lot of personal questions you should ask yourself about going down the path of business ownership. So it sounds like it's in there. Yep. All right, Mark would like to know, what do you think about a franchise that's sold to a venture capital firm, and that firm is charging the cost of acquisition, its debt, to all of the other franchisees?
So Mark, I've never heard of that. I'm assuming it must be out there because you've seen it and asking the question. At first glance, that doesn't sound that great. And I would validate that with the franchisees, okay? Or confirm that with the franchisees. And by speaking with them, 5, 10, 15, 20 of those franchisees to understand what has happened with that acquisition, the VC acquisition, and how it's affecting their business, that's going to give you a good sense of, all right, even though it's VC and they're taking on some of the debt, the franchisees, it hasn't affected the business greatly and they're okay with it. Or you might hear that, it's not a good thing and everybody's frustrated.
Okay. Thank you. And Jeff is asking, this might not be the best time to start a retail-based franchise, but are you seeing any franchising opportunities that are emerging as a result of the current economic environment and health crisis?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. I'm not seeing anything now where there's franchisors or new ones, franchises that are popping up that are emerging as a result of this. I think it's making concepts think differently about their business model and how they're going to address their business practice moving forward as we start to get back to normal.
Okay. And Julie said, well, she may have missed it in your introduction. Do you currently own or have you ever owned a franchise?
So great question. I have not, but I came from a family business, as I said, worked in that as a youngster growing up, went into it full time. So I have that unique perspective. And I always wonder what it would have been like if my parents had invested in a franchise as opposed to going out on their own, because they had to always reinvent the wheel and never had that support that the franchisor offers. Now, we had a nice business. Was it as successful as it could have been? Probably not. And that's not to say that franchising is the end-all be-all. There's plenty of people that start their own business and are extremely successful. The benefit of franchising is that it's the best way to mitigate your risk when you find the right franchise.
Lee is asking, he's looking at a concept with multiple local units already in place, very proven firm. Can he trust them that the market will bear new entries?
So that's a validation question. And what I mean by that is you want to speak to other owners around the country who had that same question when they opened up, to understand what the market's like and how that market compares to their market.
Gary is observing the CARES Act, the new financing from the government, was established to help existing business survive the current pandemic. That's distributing dollars through the SBA, Small Business Administration. Do you know if any of those dollars are available for new businesses?
I don't, but that's a simple question that, just calling up the bank, they should have that answer. I'm not sure. My guess is yes. My guess is yes, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, the bank will probably be able to answer that best with whatever requirements that they have, certainly. My understanding is banks are no longer accepting applications because the fund has technically been drawn or allocated. So just be aware of that. That may be extended. And also, the CARES Act is mostly intended to be used for salary. I believe, well, you can use it really for anything you want, but they will forgive the loan, use it as a grant if 75% or more is used as salary instead of just for other business expense. So you do have to speak to your business planner with that. Pat's asking if the presentation will be on YouTube as others. Yes, it will, probably this afternoon. Adabola is asking, given that the statistics may vary from one industry to another, what is the proportion of franchises that fail within the first year of operation?
So anecdotally, in the industry, what you'll hear is 70% of franchises succeed out there in the franchise world. That's probably the best way that I can answer that. In fact, David, if you send that question to me after, I have some stats. I just don't have them in front of me from the either SBA or the government on that exact question, and I'll try and find that.
Okay, and for Ebola, off the cuff, I don't know that I have your contact information. So if you want to offline, send an email to psgofmercercounty@gmail.com. I could put you in touch directly with Harris as well. Of course, still on the screen is his contact information if you want to reach out to him directly, but I will
Sure.
provide that. Mark has a question. Where do you put the barrier to entry in the acquisition process of evaluating a franchise?
Could he elaborate on that?
All right, Mark, type away. So I guess what do you mean by
Yeah.
barrier is what he's looking for. And so, so Mark, we'll give you that opportunity. Then what we'll do is we'll just wrap up the presentation at that point. Yep. You know, one thing just hearing about, while you don't have the statistics in front of you, but it's approximately 70% as a success rate, different than just starting your own business, and this of course is starting a business for yourself, you do have the parent organization behind you and they want you to succeed. So they want that success. So I think there's a lot of benefit having that behind that support mechanism behind you. I would think that's part of it.
You know, David, that's a really good point. So for anybody that's going to explore understanding the philosophy of the franchisor and aligning and making sure that their philosophy is in alignment with yours is really important, because the more money the franchisor makes, the more money you make. However, there are some poor franchisors out there who really just want to make a quick sale. And you would think, well, why do they want to do that? Because they just have to keep churning over people. But it's like anything else in life. You walk into a store, you get great service, they know your name, they really want to make sure that you feel good, they want you to come back, they want to build up a long-standing relationship with you, and then you go into another store and they could care less that you're in there. So you really want to find those organizations that are really invested in the franchisees to make sure that they succeed. And and you get that answer by speaking to the franchisees, right? They're gonna tell you what it's really like.
And so actually to follow up that point, and I guess it's Mark's follow-up question. So what does the franchise do or offer that an in-person can't do on their own?
All right, I love that question. So when you look at these concepts, right? Super cuts or great clips, you know, the hair care organizations, or you know, let's say a burger joint like I don't know, Five Guys Burgers and Fries, right? You could start most of these organizations, you could start your own business with looking at almost all of these on your own, no problem. The benefit, what you get, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to make the same mistakes that the franchisor already made. They're giving you the recipe for success. A good example is my parents' business, right? We started out sole entrepreneurs just from marketing alone. It took us forever how to figure out the logo, okay, where to make the logo. Is the logo the right logo? Does it have the right messaging? Then once you have the logo, where do you place your ad? Which publications do you put it in? How big do you make the ad? How often do you place the ad? Okay. Am I spending too much money on my ads? Can I leverage economies of scale to place the ads? Should I wrap my truck? Okay, that's my mobile billboard. You know, do I get embroidered shirts for everybody? Should everybody be wearing the same color pants? I mean, I could go on and on. So the franchisor is giving you the recipe for success. What you're trying to figure out is this the right recipe for me? Okay, they all have a recipe for success, especially the good ones. So we're just talking about the good concepts that are out there that have good reputations and are going to validate well. Franchisees are making money. Franchisees are extremely successful. The question is it the right recipe for you. Because just because it's good for one person and they're having incredible success doesn't mean that that's necessarily the right recipe for you.
Okay, terrific. Well, Harris, we're going to wrap up. It seems like we got some good questions, but people are all talked out or written out.
Great.
But Harris, thank you so much. This was such a special program. We don't always have the opportunity to present a program like yours. We stick with a lot of, I'll call it job seeker basics, but this could be so important for the right people, and I'm glad you were able to participate. Everybody in the group, Harris and I met through a mutual friend who thought this would be a good idea for us. Harris and I connected, and we both agreed it could be a good idea. So appreciate that we're in touch, and appreciate your participation.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yep, go ahead.
And I was going to say, you know, obviously you have my contact information here. Happy to answer any questions offline. Thanks again.
Terrific. So we do currently now have our slides, or Harris's slides, on our website, psg.mercercounty.org. On the right-hand side of the website is a sidebar. It's actually on every page, and one of the items in the sidebar is a link called Meeting Presentation Documents. And so when you go to that page, you will see a link for Harris's slides. A little while, probably later today, we will have the link to the video. Also on the right sidebar is a link to our YouTube channel. The video will be there as well, but I do need some, I got to wait for GoToMeeting to finish processing it, and then I do a little bit of editing and cleanup. Want to let you know also what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. Next week, right here, right online again, for PSG in Mercer County, we will have our virtual meeting. Linda Young will give a presentation called Getting Started with Today's Job Search Process. So if some of you are finding yourself new in the job search or back at job search, and it hasn't been for a long time that you've been in job search, great program to get yourself started. It seems like the time is just right. I'm glad Linda's able to give the program now, because unfortunately with the bump in the economy, there have been extra layoffs, so we may have good attendance for that. I'm glad Linda could participate and present Getting Started with Today's Job Search Process. And then the week after is kind of a natural flow into it. Valerie S. Williams, my friend who precedes me when I call myself Tom Selleck, Valerie S. Williams will be doing a program, Kickstart Your Job Search, the Essential Checklist. So again, two programs that really help you get started or get restarted, either way, in your job search. It could be also that you're just a little bit stuck. You've been at it for a few weeks, few months, and you're in a little bit of a rut, and these programs will both help you get out of that rut and help you refocus. So that's what we have coming up. April 24th, Linda Young, and May 1st, Valerie Williams. Other groups in the area have some interesting programs. SCORE is a volunteer organization that helps business people and small businesses thrive and grow. They have a webinar on Wednesday, April 22nd at 10 o'clock in the morning. It is called How to Build Your Small Business in New Jersey, or How to Start Your Small Business in New Jersey. You can find out more information at princeton.score.org. Princeton.score.org. That's the Princeton chapter's webpage on the SCORE website. And then you'll see a button on the webpage called Take a Workshop, and you click on that and you can register for their webinar. The webinar is free, but it's a nice follow-up to Harris's program today about starting a business in New Jersey. Also on Monday, kind of a cousin organization of ours, PSG of Central New Jersey. They will meet on Monday, April 20th at 10:30, also virtually. Alex Freund is doing a presentation, How to Deal with Long-Term Unemployment. So if you are in that position, maybe 3-4 months or longer, and you have specific concerns or frustrations, it'd be really nice to hear Alex's presentation on how to deal with long-term unemployment. To connect, you will go to their website, not Alex's. You go to the PSG of Central New Jersey website, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. Biz. So that's their website. For those of you that don't know, all the PSG groups in New Jersey have a common beginning or common connection, and that is the programs were previously directly part of the New Jersey Labor and Workforce Development Office. A few of them are still thriving. So this Mercer County one, ours is, and the Central New Jersey one as well. So we're kind of cousins, the two groups, so we help each other out all the time. So remember, the slides are online now. The video will be before the end of the day. Remember, join our LinkedIn group, or at least visit it, PSG of Mercer County. Go look at that on LinkedIn. Look at our YouTube channel. We're trying to give as many resources, provide as much assistance as we can to everybody in a career transition right now. So once again, thanks to Harris Grubin. Appreciate you being a part of our organization. Thank you everyone who has participated. And we will look forward to seeing you next week, hopefully, with Linda Young's program, Getting Started with Today's Job Search Process. So everyone, have an Aloha Friday. Bye, everyone.